Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. You're listening to our Dungeons and Dragons game. I'm your host, the Dungeon Master, or DM for short. And in today's story, the prologue is that the first unhuman war is fought. The elves build bionoids and spirit warriors to aid them in battle. As the king of the elves, Arthur becomes a war hero, but it is forbidden for immortals to rule over mortals. So the other immortals punish Arthur. He returns to his home plane as he would, as though if he'd been killed. But certain immortals who are plotting against him turn him into a squirrel. If he can be killed in this dimension, even as an immortal, he'd be dead forever. His friends come looking for him, including a wizard named Zeppo, who's a jerk. Zeppo, at one point, walks into the woods there, lifts his black robes, and urinates on one of the trees. Arthur the squirrel says, "You shouldn't have come here, Zeppo." Zeppo looks up and sees the trees are full of squirrels. Zeppo insults them and is killed by countless alien squirrels. The PCs try to float Zeppo out to the Spelljammer. The Spaniard says, "Fat floats." And they're right. But Zeppo's plumpness also makes him very appetizing, and as such, he is swallowed whole by a large space whale from this dimension. Arthur eventually looks human again and returns to the prime material plane, but promises to never again rule. Then we get into the plot. After inspiring Shakespeare to write about Oberon and Titania, Arthur visits the planet Kryn, where he meets a tinker gnome named Gamish. He and Gamish become best friends and travel together for a while. They sit around campfires at night, and Gamish wonders what happens when people die. Arthur says he has almost died many times, telling Gamish he was once turned into a squirrel by his enemies. He leaves out the part about being immortal, though. Gamish asks what Arthur thinks would happen if he had been eaten by predators on that, well, not that planet, in that dimension, while in his squirrel form. Artie says that he'd like to think that he would then go to heaven, the real heaven, not one of these fake heavens that the immortals have made. Gamish's curiosity is piqued. So is the curiosity of a human scribe they picked up along the way. The two of them ask tons of questions. Artie doesn't enjoy answering them all and wishes he could just tell them to read the book. So he excuses himself, turns into his true form, teleports to Earth, grabs a Bible, then teleports back and gives it to him. What seems like a minor action has major consequences. The young man becomes a cleric, the first Christian cleric on the planet Kryn. And as Arthur explains various inventions to Gamish, Gamish then makes all of them perfectly. With most Tinker Gnomes, something goes wrong, but Gamish gets it right every time. And he builds a Gutenberg press. The party arrives in a rundown old dusty town called Tarsus. Arthur kills some monsters, earning the thanks of the townsfolk, and he is given a handful of meager rewards. Gamish asks that one of them be a little plot of land. On it, Gamish builds a sort of warehouse, and inside of it, he puts his printing press. And he and the cleric start manufacturing Bibles. Christianity begins to spread. Meanwhile, the townsfolk had been suffering because the sea here dried up long ago, which for Arthur is easy to solve. He grabs some polar ice and brings it here by the ton, and it melts, and soon the old ships that were resting on dry land are floating on water. Gamish helps them with irrigation, and they start growing better crops and feeding more hungry people. And those suffering in the surrounding regions hear of this, and they flock to Tarsus. And the dusty little village grows and becomes a thriving metropolis. Because of this, they erect a statue honoring Arthur. They even suggest renaming the town Arthuropolis, but he insists they don't. A young man named Brightblade shows up, pretending to be a hero. He asks to be Arthur's squire, and Arthur lets him do it for a while. But Brightblade's real mission is to burn down the Bible factory. The clerics of rival religions in the region dislike anyone horning in on their turf. Brightblade's intentions are revealed eventually when he uses charity funds to build his own mansion. Arthur scolds him, so Brightblade poisons Arthur. At the time, Arthur had created a mortal avatar that was a human fighter, and as it slowly dies, he kills Brightblade right in front of Brightblade's wife, Phoebe, a weremouse. Weremice, by the way, are the domestic cousins of the were-rat. Anyway, so Gamish tells everyone that Arthur's going to heaven as he dies a quote-unquote martyr. Arthur's not truly dead, of course. It's more like he's been put in time out. He's stuck in the same dimension he was before, the one with the squirrels, except now he looks human. He visits the alien squirrels here, and they're happy to see him. After a number of days equal to how many hit points he had, Arthur returns to Tarsus, but this time he's disguised as Henry, a level 1 human fighter. Henry visits Gamish and tells him what happened. He explains that he can't really go to heaven until he's killed in that squirrel forest. Gamish apologizes for the confusion and spreading misinformation. Arthur/Henry tells Gamish that things here just got out of hand, so he doesn't want to stick around. Gamish packs his things and said it would be better to leave Tarsus and still be able to hang out with his best friend. Phoebe the weremouse shows up while Gamish is packing and takes a liking to Henry, not realizing he's the same man who killed her evil husband. Phoebe, by the way, had no idea he was evil either. He had lied to everyone, including her. Then we get into the epilogue. Gamish ends up inventing tons of things Arthur told him about. One such invention was the locomotive. So pretty soon, train tracks run throughout Krynn. Gamish's success causes him to become the king of Mount Nevermind. There, he and a bunch of other Tinker Gnomes build all sorts of things, raising the tech level of Krynn. Their inventions spread through the spaceways. Spelljammers dock at Mount Nevermind now, where their crews buy up all sorts of steampunk contraptions that Gamish cooks up. His name spreads, and people everywhere think of Gamish as the greatest Tinker Gnome who's ever lived. The Xenos hear of Gamish. Arthur takes Gamish on a trip to the Kingdom of the Moon. It was once a kingdom consisting solely of men, with no women. They were kind to Arthur, and they had a junkyard that, for whatever reason, would summon objects from throughout space and time. Arthur once found a functional jukebox there, as well as a roller coaster and some Christmas lights. Anyways, he shows Gamish this place, and Gamish becomes obsessed. The neon green moon dew that the Moon Kingdom liked to drink is still here, in bottles, in a sort of wine cellar/warehouse. Gamish drinks nothing but moon dew for days as he studies. Gamish finds a computer from the future, beyond even the time that Arthur is from, and it can talk. Gamish asks it questions, and it answers them. So Gamish asks basic questions like, how do you build a gasoline engine? And then it explains it. It leads up to the point where Gamish says, how do you build a Model T Ford? And it explains it. It eventually gets to, how do you build a car from Arthur's time? And it explains that. Gamish's knowledge is increasing at lightning speed. Anyways, While the boys are here in the junkyard, someone drops a mountain on Kryn. That snaps Gamish out of it. He wonders if the Xenos are the ones behind the Great Cataclysm because they didn't like that he was raising the tech level. So that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. We mentioned the Moon Kingdom in an earlier video at this point in our timeline because it's been about 1,000 years since we were there. Those guys have died out. Lots of stuff from the earlier videos have died out by now. By the time you get to the Cataclysm on Kryn, which is from the Dragonlance books, by the way. So is Mount Nevermind. My son is currently playing Gamish in the newest games, but Gamish was originally an NPC created by my wife. My wife was the DM of this one, by the way. I should point that one out. Seems like there's something else I should throw in there, but I don't know what it would be. Oh well, that's it. I hope that you liked it. If so, smash the like button, hit subscribe, ring the bell, leave us a comment, all that jazz, and we'll see you in the next one.